The crack of thunder split the sky above Sierra City, Nevada, and Lily Thornton pressed herself against the wooden wall of the general store so hard she thought her bones might break through her skin. Her breath came in ragged gasps as the storm rolled across the dusty streets of the mining town, turning the afternoon darker than twilight. She had been standing there for 20 minutes, unable to move, unable to think past the pure terror that gripped her every time the heavens roared. A deep voice cut through her panic. "Madam, you cannot stay out here. This storm is getting worse by the minute." Lily turned her head slowly, her green eyes wide with fear, and found herself looking into the face of a stranger. He was tall, with shoulders broad enough to block out the threatening sky behind him. Dark hair fell slightly over his forehead, damp from the rain that had just begun to fall, and his brown eyes held a mixture of concern and something else she could not quite place. "I cannot," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rumble of distant thunder. "I cannot move." The cowboy did not hesitate. He stepped closer, removing his worn leather jacket and draping it over her trembling shoulders. "My name is Zachary Noble. I work at the ranch just outside town." "You are safe, I promise you that." Another crack of thunder made Lily cry out, and before she could protest, Zachary had wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close against his chest. She could feel the steady beat of his heart through his shirt, a rhythm so different from the chaotic pounding of her own. "Listen to my breathing," he said softly, his voice a low rumble that somehow cut through her terror. "In and out, nice and slow. The storm cannot hurt you while I am here." Lily did not know this man. She had arrived in Sierra City only 3 weeks ago, fleeing a past she tried desperately not to think about. She had come to Nevada to start fresh, to work as a seamstress in a town where nobody knew her name or her story. Yet here she stood, allowing a complete stranger to hold her while the world exploded around them. The rain began in earnest, fat drops that quickly turned into sheets of water. Zachary looked around quickly, then guided her gently toward the covered porch of the boarding house across the street. He kept his arm around her shoulders, his body angled to shield her from the worst of the downpour. With each step, Lily focused on his presence, on the warmth radiating from him, on anything but the storm. They reached the porch just as lightning illuminated the entire street in brilliant white light. Lily buried her face against Zachary's chest, her hands gripping his shirt with desperate strength. He did not complain, did not pull away. Instead, he simply held her closer, one hand moving in slow circles on her back. "I have you," he murmured. "You are safe." The landlady, Mrs. Peterson, opened the door and peered out at them with raised eyebrows. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. "Miss Thornton, are you all right? She is afraid of the storm," Zachary explained, his tone leaving no room for judgment. "She needs somewhere safe to wait it out. Mrs." Peterson's expression softened immediately. "Come inside, both of you. You are soaked through." They moved into the boarding house parlor, where a fire crackled in the hearth despite the warmth of the August afternoon. Zachary guided Lily to a chair near the fire, but when he tried to step back, her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. "Please," she whispered, "do not leave." He looked down at her pale face, at the genuine terror in her eyes, and something in his chest tightened. "I will not go anywhere," he promised, pulling another chair close to hers and sitting down. He took both her hands in his, noting how they trembled. "Tell me about yourself. It might help to focus on something else." Lily took a shaky breath. "There is not much to tell. I came here from Missouri. I am a seamstress. I take in mending and make dresses when people order them." "Family?" Zachary asked gently. A shadow passed over her face. "No, not anymore." He did not press, sensing the pain behind those words. Instead, he said, "I have been working cattle since I was 16. That was 8 years ago. Came out west from Virginia after the war ended. My father served in the Confederate Army, and when he came back, he was not the same man. I needed to make my own way." Thunder rolled overhead again, and Lily flinched, but this time she did not cry out. Zachary squeezed her hands gently. "You are doing well. Keep breathing." "Why does it frighten me so much?" Lily asked, her voice breaking. "I am 22 years old. I should not be reduced to this by a simple storm." "Fear does not care about age or reason," Zachary said. "I have seen grown men freeze at the sight of a rattlesnake and children who could stare down a charging bull. We all have something that terrifies us." "What frightens you?" Lily asked, grateful for the distraction. Zachary was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing small circles on the back of her hand. "Losing people I care about. I lost my younger sister to fever when she was just 10 years old. I was supposed to be watching her that day, but I went fishing instead. By the time I got home, she was burning up. We got the doctor, but it was too late." "That was not your fault," Lily said softly, momentarily forgetting her own fear in the face of his pain. "My head knows that. My heart is still catching up." He looked up at her, and their eyes met. "How did you come to fear thunder?" Lily hesitated, then decided this man who had shared his own wound deserved honesty. "I was 7 years old. My family was traveling in a wagon when a terrible storm hit. Lightning struck a tree right beside us, and it fell across the wagon. My mother was killed instantly. My father and I survived, but he was never the same after that. He started drinking. By the time I was 18, he drank himself to death. Every time I hear thunder, I am back in that wagon, hearing my mother scream." Zachary's grip on her hands tightened. "I am so sorry." They sat in silence for a while, the storm raging outside, the fire crackling inside. Mrs. Peterson brought them tea and blankets, then discreetly left them alone. The rain hammered against the windows, and thunder continued its assault on the sky, but gradually, Lily found herself relaxing. Zachary's presence was steady, unshakable. He did not try to tell her that her fear was silly, or that she should just get over it. He simply stayed, holding her hands, occasionally murmuring reassurances when the thunder grew particularly loud. "Tell me about the ranch," Lily said eventually, needing to hear his voice. Zachary smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "The Bar 7 Ranch belongs to a man named Samuel Harrison. He is a good employer, fair and honest. We run about 2,000 head of cattle, and we employ 20 cowboys during the busy season. I am the foreman, which means I manage the other hands and make sure everything runs smoothly. The work is hard, but I love it. There is something about being out on the range, just you and your horse and the open sky." "It sounds wonderful," Lily said wistfully. "I have spent most of my life in towns and cities. I have never really known that kind of freedom." "You should come visit sometime," Zachary said, then seemed surprised by his own words. "I mean when you are comfortable. When the weather is clear. We have a cook who makes the best apple pie you have ever tasted, and the sunrise over the mountains is something everyone should see at least once." Lily found herself smiling despite the storm. "I would like that." They talked for hours as the storm continued. Zachary told her about his favorite horse, a chestnut mare named Copper who was too smart for her own good. Lily told him about her work, about the satisfaction she felt when a dress she had made fit perfectly, when a customer's face lit up at seeing themselves transformed. They discovered they both loved reading, though books were hard to come by in Sierra City. They both preferred coffee to tea, though they were drinking tea now. They both believed that honesty was more important than charm, though Zachary admitted he had plenty of the latter when he chose to use it. By the time the storm finally passed, leaving behind a fresh, washed world and the sweet smell of rain on dust, Lily realized that her hands were still in Zachary's and that she did not want to let go. "The storm is over," Zachary said softly, but he made no move to pull away. "Thank you," Lily whispered. "I do not know what I would have done if you had not been there." "You would have been fine," he said. "You are stronger than you think." I did not feel strong. Strength is not about never being afraid, it is about continuing on despite the fear. He finally released one of her hands but kept hold of the other. "May I call on you, properly I mean? I would like to get to know you better." Lily's heart skipped. "I would like that very much." Over the following weeks, Zachary became a constant presence in Lily's life. He would ride into town every Sunday, his one day off from the ranch, and they would spend the afternoon together. Sometimes they walked along the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to scrubland and distant mountains. Sometimes they sat on the boarding house porch, talking for hours while Mrs. Peterson watched from the window with an approving smile. Zachary brought Lily books from Mr. Harrison's extensive library, and she mended his shirts and sewed him a new vest from fabric she had been saving for something special. He told her about his work, about the ornery bull they were trying to keep separated from the heifers, about the new colt that showed promise as a cutting horse. She told him about her customers, about the banker's wife who wanted a dress with so many ruffles it would take a month to complete, about the little girl who had asked for a dress just like her dolls. They were careful, always proper. Mrs. Peterson insisted on sitting in the parlor when Zachary visited inside, though she usually pretended to read her book while actually watching them like a hawk. But despite the propriety, despite the careful distance they maintained, something was growing between them. Lily felt it in the way her heart raced when she saw Zachary riding down the main street. Zachary felt it in the way he found himself thinking about her at odd moments, wondering if she would like the wildflowers blooming in the high meadow, or what she would say about the hawk he had watched diving for prey. Then came the second storm. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September, and Lily was in her small room at the boarding house, working on a wedding dress for the schoolteacher. She heard the thunder in the distance and felt her stomach drop. The sky outside her window was growing dark, heavy clouds rolling in from the west. She tried to keep working, tried to focus on the delicate lace she was attaching to the bodice, but her hands began to shake. The thunder grew louder, closer. She set down her needle before she could stab herself and wrapped her arms around her body, trying to hold herself together. A knock at the door made her jump. "Miss Thornton," Mrs. Peterson's voice was concerned. "There is someone here to see you." Lily stood on shaky legs and opened the door. Behind Mrs. Peterson stood Zachary, his hat in his hands, his expression worried. "I saw the storm coming," he said simply. "I thought you might need someone." Lily wanted to cry with relief. "You rode all the way from the ranch," I pushed Copper hard. "We made good time." He glanced at Mrs. Peterson. "May I?" The landlady looked between them, then nodded. "I will be downstairs if you need anything. Door stays open." Zachary stepped into the room and Lily immediately moved to him. He opened his arms and she walked into them as naturally as breathing. The first crack of lightning made her gasp, but his arms tightened around her. "I have you," he murmured, the same words he had said that first day. "You are safe with me." They stood like that as the storm raged, Zachary holding Lily close, one hand in her hair, the other wrapped firmly around her waist. He could feel her trembling against him, could hear her trying to control her breathing. "Talk to me," she whispered against his chest. "Please, just keep talking." So he did. He told her about his morning, about helping deliver a calf, about the cowhand who had accidentally sat on his own hat, and then tried to reshape it for an hour. He told her about the letter he had received from his mother in Virginia, about how his father was doing better, working in a mercantile now and staying sober. He told her about his dreams, about maybe having his own ranch someday, nothing as big as the Bar 7, but a place he could call his own. "What would you call it?" Lily asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. "The Noble Ranch, I suppose," Zachary said. "Not very creative, but honest." "I like honest," Lily said. The thunder crashed overhead and she pressed closer to him. "Zachary, I need to tell you something, anything." "I am falling in love with you," she whispered. "I know we have only known each other for a few weeks, and I know this might be too soon, but I cannot keep pretending that what I feel is just friendship. When I saw you at my door just now, knowing you had ridden through this storm to be with me, I realized that I trust you more than I have ever trusted anyone. I feel safe with you. I feel seen. I feel like maybe I could be brave again." Zachary pulled back just enough to tilt her face up to his. His brown eyes were intense, filled with emotion. "Lily Thornton, I have been half in love with you since the moment I saw you pressed against that wall, terrified but trying so hard to be strong. I am all the way in love with you now. You are the reason I find excuses to ride into town. You are the face I see when I close my eyes at night. You are what I want to come home to." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and Lily felt like the world had suddenly righted itself. The storm still raged outside, thunder still shook the windows, but she was not afraid anymore. Not with Zachary's arms around her, not with his lips on hers, not with the knowledge that he loved her as much as she loved him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Zachary rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. "I know it is fast, and I know I should probably court you for months and do this properly, but I also know that I do not want to spend another day without knowing you will be mine. Marry me, Lily. Let me hold you through every storm for the rest of our lives." "Yes," Lily said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, yes, yes." They kissed again, longer this time, deeper, and when they finally came up for air, the storm was already passing. Zachary laughed. "I think even the weather approves, Mrs." Peterson appeared in the doorway, her eyes twinkling. "I heard everything, and before you worry about propriety, let me say that I think you two are perfect for each other." "When is the wedding?" "As soon as possible," Zachary said, keeping one arm firmly around Lily's waist. "If the preacher is available this Sunday, that would be perfect." "This Sunday," Lily gasped, "but I have nothing prepared. I do not even have a dress." "You are a seamstress," Mrs. Peterson pointed out, "and you have 3 days. Plus, every woman in this town who you have sewn for will be happy to help. Consider it payment for all the beautiful work you have done." The next 3 days passed in a blur. True to Mrs. Peterson's word, the women of Sierra City descended on the boarding house with fabric, lace, ribbons, and offers of help. The banker's wife, the same one who had wanted the ruffly dress, brought yards of ivory silk. The schoolteacher contributed delicate lace from her own wedding dress. The blacksmith's daughter, a girl of 19 with a gift for embroidery, offered to decorate the hem and sleeves. Lily worked late into the night, her fear of storms temporarily forgotten in the excitement of preparing for her wedding. She created a dress that was simple but elegant, with a fitted bodice and a full skirt that swished when she walked. The lace at the collar and cuffs was delicate as frost, and the embroidery along the hem depicted wildflowers, the kind that grew in the meadows around the Bar 7 ranch. Zachary, meanwhile, was dealing with his own preparations. Mr. Harrison, his employer, was delighted at the news and insisted on hosting the wedding dinner at the ranch. "You have been with me for 6 years, Zachary," the older man said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You are like a son to me. Let me do this." The other cowboys were equally enthusiastic, though they gave Zachary endless grief about being caught by a woman. "She must be something special," said Tom, one of the older hands. "Never seen you look at anyone the way you look when you talk about her." "She is," Zachary said simply. "She is everything." Sunday dawned clear and bright without a cloud in the sky. Lily stood in her room at the boarding house, looking at herself in the small mirror. The dress fit perfectly, and her dark hair was pinned up with wildflowers that Mrs. Peterson had picked that morning. She looked happy, she realized. For the first time since her mother had died, she looked truly happy. There was a knock at the door, and Mrs. Peterson entered. "You look beautiful, dear. Are you ready?" Lily took a deep breath. "I am. Is Zachary at the church?" "He has been there for the past hour, pacing a hole in the floor, according to Reverend Matthews." Mrs. Peterson smiled. "That man loves you very much." They walked to the small church at the end of Main Street, and Lily was surprised to see how many people had gathered. It seemed like half the town had turned out to witness the wedding. She recognized customers, neighbors, people she had only spoken to in passing. They all smiled at her as she walked down the aisle, but she only had eyes for Zachary. He stood at the front of the church in a new suit, his dark hair neatly combed, his eyes fixed on her with such love and intensity that she felt her breath catch. As she reached him and took his hand, he leaned in and whispered, "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." The ceremony was simple and traditional. They exchanged vows, promising to love and honor each other for the rest of their lives. When Reverend Matthews said, "You may kiss your bride," Zachary cupped Lily's face in his hands and kissed her with a tenderness that brought tears to more than one eye in the congregation. They were married. Lily Noble. She tried out the name in her head and found she loved it. The reception at the Bar 7 Ranch was unlike anything Lily had expected. The bunkhouse had been cleaned and decorated with wildflowers and ribbons. Tables had been set up in the yard, laden with food that the ranch cook, a man named Charlie who had worked cattle drives in his youth, had prepared with obvious pride. There was roasted beef, fresh bread, vegetables from the ranch garden, and 3 different kinds of pie. The Cowboys were on their best behavior, though their enthusiasm was evident. They toasted the happy couple, told embarrassing stories about Zachary that made Lily laugh until her sides hurt, and taught her a drinking song that made Zachary cover his face in mock horror. Mr. Harrison gave a speech about how Zachary was the best foreman he had ever had, and how he could see that Lily would be a wonderful addition to their community. "The Bar 7 Ranch is more than just a place to work," he said. "It is a family, and Lily, you are family now." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Zachary led Lily away from the party. They walked hand in hand toward a small cabin set apart from the main ranch buildings. "Mr. Harrison is giving us this cabin," Zachary explained. "It is not much, but it is ours. He said that as foreman, I should have my own place, especially now that I have a wife." Lily looked at the cabin with wonder. It was small but well built, with a front porch and real glass windows. "It is perfect," she breathed. Zachary swept her up in his arms, making her laugh, and carried her across the threshold. The inside was simple but clean, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area, and a bedroom separated by a curtain. Someone, probably Charlie, had lit candles throughout the space, and there were fresh flowers on the table. "Welcome home, Mrs. Noble," Zachary said softly, setting her down. Lily reached up and pulled him down for a kiss. "Take me to bed, husband," she whispered against his lips. What followed was tender and passionate, a joining of 2 souls who had found each other against all odds. Zachary was gentle, aware that this was new for Lily, and she loved him all the more for his patience. They made love slowly, learning each other's bodies, discovering what brought pleasure and what brought gasps of delight. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Lily's head on Zachary's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. "Are you happy?" Zachary asked, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Lily said. "I cannot believe that just a few weeks ago I was alone in this world. Now I have you and a home and a future." "We have a future," Zachary corrected. "Together." Over the next few months, Lily settled into life at the Bar 7 ranch. She continued her seamstress work, but now her customers came to the ranch instead of her going to town. She discovered she loved life on the ranch, loved the open spaces and the simple rhythms of the days. She learned to ride a horse, a gentle mare named Daisy that Zachary gave her as a wedding gift. She learned to cook from Charlie, who grumbled about having a woman in his kitchen but secretly enjoyed teaching her his recipes. She also learned about ranching. Zachary taught her to recognize different brands, to tell good cattle from poor, to read the weather in the clouds. She met all the cowboys who worked on the ranch, from young Billy, who was only 18 and had run away from an abusive father, to old Tom, who had been cowboying since before the war and had stories that could make you laugh or cry or both. And through it all, Zachary held her close. When storms rolled through, which they did frequently that fall, he was always there. He would drop whatever he was doing and come to her, holding her until the thunder passed. The cowboys learned quickly that when a storm approached, Zachary would be unavailable until it was over. They did not tease him about it. They had all seen Lily's terror during that first storm at the ranch, had seen how Zachary talked her through it, and they respected the devotion he showed her. Winter came to Nevada, bringing snow to the mountains and cold winds to the valley. Lily discovered that she loved winter evenings, when she and Zachary would sit by the fire in their cabin, her sewing and him reading aloud from whatever book they had borrowed from Mr. Harrison's library. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing their dreams and fears, their pasts and their hopes for the future. "I want children," Lily said one night in January, setting down her mending. "I want to fill this cabin with laughter and love." Zachary looked up from his book, his eyes soft. "I want that too. I want sons to teach to ride and daughters to spoil rotten. I want a family with you, Lily, as many children as God sees fit to bless us with." "You think I will be a good mother?" Lily asked quietly. "I had so little time with my own mother, and I have no other example to follow." Zachary set down his book and pulled her into his lap. "You will be a wonderful mother. You are kind and patient and loving. Our children will be blessed to have you." In March, Lily's monthly bleeding did not come. She waited a week, then two, before telling Zachary. They were out riding together, checking on cattle in the far pasture when she finally found the courage to speak. "Zachary, I think I might be with child." He pulled Copper to a halt so quickly the horse tossed her head in protest. "What, truly?" Lily nodded, suddenly nervous. "My courses are late, and I have been feeling sick in the mornings. I cannot be certain yet, but I think so." Zachary let out a whoop of joy that startled both horses and probably half the cattle in the pasture. He swung down from Copper and pulled Lily from Daisy's back, spinning her around until she was dizzy and laughing. "We are going to have a baby," he said wonderingly, settling her back on her feet and placing his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "We are going to be parents. You are happy?" Lily asked, though the answer was obvious from his face. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Zachary said. "I am over the moon, I am walking on air, I am the luckiest man alive." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Lily continued to work and ride, though Zachary fussed over her constantly, worried she was doing too much. Charlie took to making her special meals, insisting she needed to eat for two. The cowboys treated her like precious china, jumping up to help with the slightest task until she finally had to tell them to stop or she would go mad. Mr. Harrison was equally delighted, declaring that the ranch needed children to liven it up. "This place has been too quiet for too long," he said. "A baby is just what we need." Summer storms that year were particularly fierce, and Lily found herself relying on Zachary more than ever, but something had changed. Where once she had been paralyzed by fear, now she could function as long as Zachary was near. She could breathe through the thunder, could hold his hand and focus on his presence instead of the storm. She was healing, she realized. Not healed, perhaps never fully healed, but healing. And that was enough. In late October, when the leaves on the aspens had turned gold and the air held the crisp promise of winter, Lily went into labor. It was a long, difficult birth, and there were moments when Zachary feared he would lose her. He held her hand through it all, wiped the sweat from her forehead, whispered encouragement and love. Finally, after 16 hours of labor, their son was born. He was small and red and screaming, and he was the most beautiful thing Zachary had ever seen aside from his wife. The doctor, who had come from Virginia City and had been worth every penny of his fee, cleaned the baby and placed him in Lily's arms. "He is perfect," Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Zachary, look at him. He is perfect." Zachary looked at his son, at his wife, and felt his heart expand so much he thought it might burst. What should we name him? They had discussed names for months, going back and forth between family names and names they simply liked. But as Lily looked down at her son, she knew exactly what his name should be. "Matthew," she said. "Matthew Noble. It means gift of God, and that is what he is. A gift." "Matthew Noble," Zachary repeated, testing the name. "I love it, I love you, I love our son, I love our life." The first year of Matthew's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and overwhelming joy. Lily discovered that motherhood came naturally to her, despite her fears. She nursed Matthew and rocked him and sang him lullabies her mother had sung to her, songs she had not realized she remembered until they came flowing out of her. Zachary was a devoted father, taking Matthew with him whenever possible, even when the boy was tiny. He fashioned a sling that allowed him to carry his son against his chest while he worked, and the sight of the tough foreman with a baby strapped to him became common around the ranch. The cowboys adored Matthew. They took turns entertaining him, teaching him nonsense songs, carving him toys. Billy whittled an entire set of animals, spending his evenings painstakingly carving horses and cows and even a tiny dog. Tom told Matthew stories about his adventures on the cattle drives, even though the baby was far too young to understand. When Matthew was 6 months old, a massive storm hit the ranch. It was the kind of storm that made even the hardened cowboys nervous, with lightning that seemed to strike everywhere at once and thunder that shook the buildings. Zachary found Lily in the cabin, sitting in the rocking chair with Matthew in her arms, singing softly. "Are you all right?" he asked, surprised. Lily looked up at him and smiled. "I am. I am still afraid, but Matthew needs me to be calm. I cannot fall apart when my son needs me." Zachary crossed to her and wrapped his arms around both of them. "You are the strongest person I know," he said softly. "No," Lily said. "I am just a mother. We do what we must for our children." As Matthew grew into a toddler, the cabin began to feel small. Zachary and Mr. Harrison discussed expanding it, adding rooms for more children and a proper workshop for Lily's sewing. But before they could begin construction, Mr. Harrison called Zachary into his office. "Sit down, son," the older man said, and Zachary felt a flutter of nerves. Mr. Harrison only called him son when something important was happening. "I am getting old," Mr. Harrison said without preamble. I am 68 years old and I have no children of my own. This ranch has been my life, but I need to think about what happens to it when I am gone." Zachary waited, not sure where this was going. "I want to sell you the ranch," Mr. Harrison continued. "Not all at once. You could not afford that and I would not ask it of you, but I want to sell you half now, make you a partner. Then when I die, the other half goes to you. I have already had the papers drawn up." Zachary stared at him, unable to speak. "You have been more than an employee to me, Zachary. You have been the son I never had. This ranch thrived under your management. The cowboys respect you, the cattle are healthy, and the accounts are better than they have been in years. I cannot think of anyone I would rather leave this place to." "I do not know what to say," Zachary finally managed. "This is beyond generous, but I do not have the money for half the ranch." "I am not asking for cash," Mr. Harrison said. "We will work out payments over time. You will pay me from the ranch profits. It will take years, probably a decade or more, but we have time. What do you say?" Zachary thought about Lily, about Matthew, about the children they hoped to have in the future. He thought about putting down real roots, about building something lasting. "I say yes. Thank you, sir. I will make you proud." That night, Zachary told Lily the news. She was nursing Matthew before bed, and when he finished explaining, she looked up at him with shining eyes. "We own half a ranch," she said wonderingly. "Our children will grow up here, really grow up here, not just as the foreman's children, but as the owner's children." "Our children will grow up here," Zachary confirmed. "And someday, when we are old and gray, we will sit on our porch and watch our grandchildren run through these same fields." 2 years later, Lily gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Sarah. She had Lily's green eyes and Zachary's dark hair, and she was just as adored as her brother. Matthew, now 3 years old, was fascinated by his little sister, always wanting to help feed her or rock her or sing to her. Then came James, born when Matthew was 5 and Sarah was 2. Then Emma, then Daniel, then Rebecca. 6 children in 12 years, and the cabin that had seemed so perfect for 2 people was now bursting at the seams. Zachary built on addition after addition, until the cabin had become a sprawling house with 6 bedrooms and a large kitchen, and a parlor big enough for the whole family to gather in. Lily had a proper sewing room, and Zachary had an office where he managed the ranch accounts. The children grew up surrounded by love and wide open spaces. They learned to ride almost before they could walk, learned to respect the land and the animals, learned the value of hard work and honest dealing. Matthew, serious and responsible, was clearly being groomed to take over the ranch someday. Sarah, spirited and fearless, could outride most of the cowboys by the time she was 12. James had a gift with animals, able to gentle even the most skittish horse. Emma was quiet but brilliant, teaching herself to read at age 4. Daniel was the charmer with a smile that could get him out of trouble. And Rebecca, the baby, was curious about everything, always asking questions, always exploring. Mr. Harrison lived to see all 6 of Zachary and Lily's children born, dandling each one on his knee and spoiling them all outrageously. He died peacefully in his sleep when Rebecca was 2, and true to his word, his half of the ranch went to Zachary. The Bar 7 Ranch was now the Noble Ranch, though they kept the original name out of respect for the man who had built it. Through it all, through the chaos of raising 6 children and managing a large ranch, through the good years and the lean years, through the storms and the sunshine, Zachary and Lily's love only grew stronger. They still made time for each other, stealing moments alone when they could, going for rides together on Sunday afternoons, sitting together on the porch after the children were in bed. And when storms came, which they always did, Zachary still held Lily close. Her fear had diminished over the years, particularly after she had become a mother and had to be strong for her children, but it had never fully gone away. And Zachary did not mind. He loved that she still needed him, still sought his comfort, still trusted him to keep her safe. One evening, when Lily was 45 and Zachary was 51, they sat on their porch watching the sunset. Their children were scattered, Matthew now married with 2 children of his own, Sarah engaged to a young rancher from California, the others still at home but growing up fast. "Do you remember the day we met?" Lily asked, her hand in Zachary's. "Every detail," Zachary said. "You were pressed against the wall of the general store, terrified of the storm, the bravest and most beautiful thing I had ever seen." "I was a mess," Lily protested. "You were perfect," Zachary insisted. "You still are." Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. "I never thought I could be this happy. After my mother died, after my father drank himself to death, I thought I was destined to be alone. I thought my fear would define me forever. And now?" Zachary asked. "Now I know that fear is just one small part of who I am. I am also brave and strong and loved. I am a wife and a mother and a grandmother. I am happy." Thunder rumbled in the distance, and Lily tensed for just a moment before relaxing again. Zachary wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Storm is coming," he observed. "Then I am right where I need to be," Lily said. "With you." They sat together as the storm rolled in, lightning painting the sky in brilliant white, thunder shaking the earth. But they were not afraid. They had faced so many storms together, had weathered so many challenges, that one more storm was nothing. Inside the house, they could hear their children, could hear Emma playing the piano they had bought her for her 16th birthday, could hear Daniel and Rebecca arguing about something, could hear the sounds of home and family and love. "We did well," Zachary said softly. "Look at what we built together." "We did very well," Lily agreed. "And it all started with a storm and a cowboy who held me close. And a woman who was brave enough to accept comfort from a stranger," Zachary added. They kissed as the rain began to fall, as the thunder roared overhead, as the lightning illuminated their world. They kissed like young lovers, like old friends, like 2 people who had found their forever in each other's arms. Years continued to pass. Matthew took over more and more of the ranch management, allowing Zachary to slow down a bit. Sarah married her rancher and moved to California, but visited often with her growing family. James started his own horse breeding operation on a portion of the ranch land. Emma became a teacher in Sierra City, using the education Lily and Zachary had insisted all their children receive. Daniel shocked everyone by deciding to study law, moving to Carson City for his education. And Rebecca, their baby, fell in love with the son of the local doctor and settled in Sierra City as well. Lily and Zachary became the patriarch and matriarch of a sprawling family. Their house was always full of children and grandchildren, always echoing with laughter and stories and life. They had built something lasting, something good, something that would endure for generations. When Lily was 62, she fell ill with pneumonia. It was a bad winter, and despite the doctor's best efforts, she struggled. Zachary rarely left her bedside, holding her hand, reading to her, talking to her even when she was too weak to respond. One night, a storm came. It was fierce and wild, the kind of storm that would have sent young Lily into a panic. But old Lily simply opened her eyes and smiled at her husband. "Hold me," she whispered. Zachary carefully climbed into bed beside her, gathering her into his arms just as he had that first day so many years ago. "I have you," he murmured. "You are safe." "I am not afraid," Lily said, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "I have never been afraid when I am with you. You are my shelter, Zachary Noble. You are my home." "And you are mine," Zachary said, his voice breaking. "You are my heart, Lily. You always have been." But Lily recovered. Spring came, bringing warmth and new life, and Lily rallied. By summer, she was back to her old self, spoiling her grandchildren and working on her sewing and taking walks with Zachary in the evening. They had more years together, precious years filled with the kind of contentment that only comes from a life well lived. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The party was held at the ranch, and the whole town of Sierra City turned out to celebrate with them. 50 years, Lily marveled, looking at Zachary across the crowded yard. Half a century. "Best 50 years of my life," Zachary said, raising his glass to her. "Here is to 50 more." They did not get 50 more years, but they did get another decade. They grew old together, their hair turning silver, their steps slowing, but their love as strong as ever. They still sat on the porch every evening, still held hands, still stole kisses when they thought no one was looking. When Zachary was 74, he died quietly in his sleep, Lily curled up beside him. She woke to find him gone, and though she grieved, she also felt a deep sense of peace. They had had a good life together. They had loved deeply and been deeply loved in return. They had raised 6 children who were now raising children of their own. They had built a legacy that would last. Lily lived another 5 years after Zachary's death, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, telling them stories about their grandfather, about the cowboy who had held her through the storm. She told them about his kindness, his strength, his unwavering love. She told them that true love was not about grand gestures, but about the small moments, the daily choices to be there for each other, to hold each other through the storms. On a warm spring day, when the wildflowers were blooming and the sky was impossibly blue, Lily Noble closed her eyes for the last time. Her children and grandchildren surrounded her bed, holding her hands, telling her they loved her, assuring her it was all right to go. And as she took her last breath, Lily could have sworn she heard thunder in the distance. But she was not afraid. She knew that on the other side of this final storm, Zachary was waiting to hold her close. They buried her beside Zachary on a hill overlooking the ranch, under the wide Nevada sky they had both loved so much. The whole town came to the funeral, testifying to the impact Lily and Zachary had made on their community. Matthew spoke about his parents' love, about how they had shown him what it meant to be truly devoted to another person. Sarah talked about her mother's strength and her father's gentleness. All 6 children shared memories, and there was as much laughter as there were tears. The Noble Ranch continued to thrive under Matthew's management, and eventually under his children's management after him. The house that Zachary had built for Lily remained the heart of the ranch, always full of family, always echoing with the kind of love that Lily and Zachary had started all those years ago. And sometimes, when storms rolled across the Nevada desert, visitors to the ranch swore they could see 2 figures on the porch of the old house, holding each other close, weathering the storm together just as they always had. The cowboys would smile and say it was just the wind playing tricks, but they also knew better than to dismiss such stories completely, because some loves are strong enough to last beyond death. Some loves echo through generations. And the love between a cowboy named Zachary Noble and a seamstress named Lily Thornton was exactly that kind of love. Years turned into decades, and the story of Lily and Zachary became legend in Sierra City. Parents told it to their children, who told it to their children in turn. It became a story about courage in the face of fear, about the healing power of love, about 2 people who found each other at exactly the right moment. The general store where they first met was still standing 100 years later, and local historians marked it with a plaque. Tour guides told visitors about the seamstress who was afraid of thunder and the cowboy who held her close, about how their love story had started on that very spot during a storm in August of 1877. The Bar 7 Ranch, still called that, despite being owned by generations of nobles, became famous not just for its cattle and horses, but for its history. People came from all over to see where Lily and Zachary had built their life, to walk the same paths they had walked, to stand on the porch where they had watched so many sunsets together. And in Sierra City, when storms came and the thunder rolled across the desert, mothers still held their children close and told them about Lily and Zachary. They told them that fear was nothing to be ashamed of, that everyone was afraid of something, but that the right person would always help you through your storms. They told them that true love was patient and kind and enduring, that it was built on thousands of small moments of choosing each other day after day after day. The Noble family continued to grow and spread, but they never forgot their roots. Every descendant of Lily and Zachary knew the story of how their great-great-grandparents met, knew about the storm and the courage and the love that had started it all. It became a family tradition to marry on Sundays, just as Lily and Zachary had. It became custom for noble brides to carry wildflowers, just as Lily had worn in her hair, and whenever a noble child was born, no matter how many generations removed from the original Lily and Zachary, their parents would tell them the story. They would tell them about bravery and love and storms, about a seamstress and a cowboy, about holding close the people you love through whatever challenges come. The cabin where Lily and Zachary had started their married life, the one that had grown into a sprawling house, was lovingly maintained by each generation. The bedroom where all 6 of their children had been born was kept as a shrine of sorts, with the original furniture and the quilt Lily had sewn before Matthew's birth. The porch where they had spent countless evenings was reinforced and restored but never fundamentally changed, because that porch was sacred ground. In the old graveyard on the hill, Lily and Zachary's headstone was simple. It read, Zachary Noble, 1853–1927, and Lily Thornton Noble, 1855–1932. Through every storm together. Visitors often left wildflowers at the grave, and on the anniversary of their wedding, the whole Noble family would gather there to pay their respects and remember the love that had started it all. The story of Lily and Zachary proved that love could heal old wounds, that the right person at the right time could change everything, that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. It proved that 2 broken people could build something beautiful together. That family was the greatest legacy anyone could leave, that some loves really do last forever. And so the legend lived on, passed down through generations, inspiring countless others to be brave in love, to be patient with fear, to hold close the people they cherished through every storm that came their way. The cowboy and the seamstress, the foreman and the woman afraid of thunder, Zachary and Lily Noble, became immortal not through grand deeds or great wealth, but through the simple, profound act of loving each other well. Their story reminded everyone who heard it that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a single act of kindness, that sometimes forever starts with a stranger's helping hand, and that sometimes all you need to weather any storm is someone who loves you enough to hold you close and promise you are safe. In the end, that is what mattered. Not the ranch they built or the children they raised or the wealth they accumulated, though all of those things were important. What mattered was that they loved each other, truly and deeply and enduringly. What mattered was that they faced their fears together, that they built a life based on trust and respect and devotion. What mattered was that when Lily was afraid, Zachary held her close, and that simple act of love had rippled out through time, touching lives and inspiring hearts for generations to come. The storm still came to Sierra City, Nevada, rolling across the desert with thunder and lightning and rain. But the Noble family did not fear them. They welcomed them even, because storms reminded them of where they came from, of the love that had founded their family, of the cowboy who had held a frightened woman close and promised her she was safe. And in that promise, in that moment of connection and courage, everything had changed. 2 lives had been saved, not from physical danger but from loneliness and fear. A family had been born, a legacy had begun. All because a cowboy saw a woman in distress and decided to help. All because a woman was brave enough to accept that help. All because love proved stronger than fear. That was the story of Lily and Zachary Noble, and it was a story worth telling.